My dear professor, how are you doing today?
Excellent, Alex. I'm actually, I was just finished listening to our 22,600th podcast download, actually. I think I was the one who did that. Our numbers are really great. And
The best numbers ever. Best in the world.
Let's see with this podcast if we can get from 22,600 to 23,000, right? Let's really go for it.
Well, you guys know the best way for us to do well and prosper is by you guys sending in donations. That is always appreciated. You can do one time via PayPal, but we really appreciate the monthly Patreon people. Oh, thank you for showing us this. Yeah, this is the fun little data analytics. And also, guys, what really boosts us is you sharing, liking, subscribing, and selflessly promoting us. Really appreciate that. And thank you so much for listening. It's tremendous, absolutely tremendous. Get me back.
I apologize, fans. It's actually 22,400 we are at today.
Stop apologizing.
Today being August 31st, and it's about 1:30 in the afternoon. So let's see if we can get to 23,000 by the end of next week. Anyway, thanks very much for doing all this that we enjoy. We enjoy doing it. Now, you've got an interesting topic. Speaking of podcasts,
I do. I do have an interesting topic. Now stop sharing the screen.
I am. I'm going to stop sharing it. Okay, here we go.
Any day now. Okay, there we go. Okay. So now we talk about our podcast in almost every video because it's our podcast, so we're going to talk about it. But I really wanted to talk because I listen to other podcasts all the time. That you'll see me if you see me at my school. I'm walking with my Bluetooth earbuds and I'm listening all the time. And I want to go through some of the best ones that I've come across.
Good, because I've never talked about this with you, so I'm going to write these down. Sure. I'm going to write these down.
Sure. So the first and the last one are both products of the Claremont Institute, which we've raved about. So I'm not going to rave too much about it. The first one is called All in America, or The American Story. Basically, it's just a little snippet of some fun little thing in America. The introduction says it all. When you start listening, you'll know exactly what I mean. It just fills you with a love for America. Because, and not by telling you some grand philosophical thing about the Constitution or whatever, just by telling you a little American story, something that could graduate into a myth someday. But I can't recommend that enough.
Who does the podcast? Are there people that are like you and me?
Oh, I can't remember who the host is. I just know it's run by the Claremont Institute.
Okay, so there's usually one person who hosts the thing, and they get all the people involved.
No. It's one person who narrates. It's like a narrating a story.
Okay,
it's
narrated podcast. Okay, good to know.
This next one is called Be Heard Talk.
Who?
I also listen.
What?
Be Heard Talk.
Be Heard Talk.
Now this one and the next two are specifically leftist.
Okay.
I also listen to some leftist people. Be Heard Talk. I think they're from Harlem in New York. They're all black people. They usually have different guests. Sometimes they'll have a Jewish guest or whatever, and they talk about black issues. Very, very far left. Even by black community standards, they're very far left. But it's very interesting to hear their perspective.
I'm going to listen to that.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're pretty.
It's called Be Heard Talk.
That's right.
Yeah.
The next is then there's also Black Talk Radio Network. Very similar, same thing. Then there's the Best of the Left. I listen to them. What they do is they aggregate lots of different leftist point of views from all over, everywhere from the Young Turks to random YouTubers, other podcasts and whatnot. So they're very good. They're very long podcasts, but they do a good summary. Books with Bert. This one I really adore. This one is sponsored by
Books with Bert.
Yes, I've actually met the host. His name is Dr. Bert Folsom. He's a former or retired professor of history at Hilldale, and this is put on by Young Americans for Freedom or Young Americans Foundation.
Okay.
He is one of the most interesting American historians I've ever come across. He knows every single detail about the robber barons, the Gilded Age, and he does an incredible economic history of America. I would say one of the best American economic historians ever. And he talks about some of the amazing information that he came up with in his books, stories of American entrepreneurship, really uplifting. Another one is Business Wars. This is one of my fun podcasts. It frames a competitive two competitive businesses like Apple and Microsoft, or Burger King and McDonald's, or Coke and Pepsi, and it goes through the history of how did these companies originate? What did they do to fight each other? What went down? And it's all done in a very exciting narrative. I'm very, very addicted to them.
Yeah.
Another one, this is from Victor David Hansen at the Hoover Institute, his personal podcast, The Classicist.
I listened to that one too.
Very, very good. I mean,
I highly recommend that one.
It's very strange. A military historian has such keen insight into America.
He's classically trained, that's why. His mind is
classically trained. He's a classically trained conservative. If you have no idea what a conservative is, listen to him.
Yeah.
He is pretty.
Yeah.
He will give you a pretty good idea. The next one is very has a strong sentimental value. It's called Daily Bread. It's 5 minutes every day.
Daily Bread, I like that. Yeah.
What it is it came out originally as a pamphlet, a weekly pamphlet they would mail you, like a calendar, and it was like one little short page. You start your day as a devotional. They have a little Bible verse. Someone wrote it. You usually don't know who. Just a nice little uplifting essay to start your day. My grandfather, my mother's father, he reads it religiously, and every time I listen to it, I associate it with him. I say he reads it religiously. Yeah, so it's sort of like a way of bonding with him, even though I don't even speak his language, Portuguese. Right. Anyway, I also listen to Hillsdale College. They have their own podcast, which usually is Dr. Larry Arndt or some professor discussing. I can't quite remember the name of the host. Maybe it'll come to me at some point. Basically, they talk about classical things like Winston Churchill or the Iliad, or just something that you would expect to come from Hillsdale
They also review books too sometimes.
Sure, sometimes, but usually on the Hillsdale podcast, they talk like this is the implications of the first 3 chapters of the Iliad or the Book of Exodus or whatever. That's really good. Pod Save America. This is a leftist podcast, which is run by like 4 guys from the Obama administration. Really, really, if you want to know what's going on with the left, they're a great group to give you, sort of orient your mind as what are the talking points, what do they think
What's
about
the name again? What's the name again?
Pod Save America. POD Save America.
Oh, okay.
Pod Save America.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you guys were we will accept your donations. Just saying. So then there's the Daily Wire. I listen to 3 out of the 4 people. There's Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klavan, Matt Walsh, and there's also Michael Knowles. I don't care for him very much, but that's just me. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail from all the crazy. I don't know why he has so many female fans. I don't get what his sex appeal is at all. But that's just me personally. I love all 3 of them for different reasons, different reasons. They all, depending on the day or time or issue, I'll listen to a different one.
Right.
But all good. The Babylon Bee. I love the Babylon Bee as just an internet thing, a meme farm. But they have a podcast, and it's so good. I mean, the guys behind it will interview somebody, and I mean, it's not just Christians, conservatives. They get like atheists like Dave Rubin on, a few times. All sorts of really interesting people, and it's not always funny. I mean, they're funny guys just by their nature, but they have such good conversations that I love it. It's just a great podcast. Mm-hmm. The Cold War, what we saw. I really recommend this for people of my generation who did not grow up in the Cold War.
Yeah.
Because it's a historical podcast, so there's only maybe 10 episodes or so. It's done by, I can't remember his name, but he's associated with the Daily Wire. He did an earlier podcast, which is also really good, on the moon landing. This is like the follow-up to it on just the Cold War. Mm-hmm. And he goes through every aspect from the Soviet gulags to Vietnam to Korea to the spy networks. I mean, every little detail, what was going on and what people were thinking and observing. And what I love about it is he talks about the emotions that were going on in America. What were people feeling? What were the people thinking that was going on around them? So, I mean, cannot recommend that enough. I loved it. The Dave Ramsey Show, I really recommend that because he just gives a lot of good basic financial advice. He's renowned in Christian circles because he's very big on what he calls like a biblically centered sort of financial understanding.
Right,
Meaning you give a sufficient amount of charity, you give 10% away to your church. You immediately, as soon as possible, you get debt free.
Matthew listens to that a lot.
Good, yeah. Good people listen to him. Good, responsible people listen. You'll find that
Especially young people planning a family.
Yes. But I recommend you listen to him before you get into debt. So before you enter college, you start listening to him. The history of Byzantium. This is like, I think there's something like 200 episodes. Each are like 30 minutes, and I've been going through it for over a year now, and I am in love with the Byzantine history. Right. And he is extremely thorough. This is a follow-up to the History of Rome podcast, which was also very successful. I haven't listened to it, but this is very, very good. I think I'm like, the Byzantine Empire lasted something like 1,100 years. I'm at year like 800. But I mean, so addicting. I can't get enough of the Byzantine Empire, and he goes through every single detail. So you feel like you know everything. And, unless you have a short attention span like me, you immediately forget it. That's one of my favorite podcasts. Washington Times, front page. That's just 5 minutes. That just tells you what's the front page news. Really good. By the way, fun fact about this. So there's this one, early in my days in Washington, I met with this guy from the Washington Times. And he was kind of new at his job. And he wanted to ask me, a young person, how does the Washington Times appeal to your demographic? And I go, well, I listen mostly to podcasts, so you really should get into podcasts. And lo and behold, like a couple months later, the Washington Times starts up a podcast. So I'm like,
Did they send you a check? Did they send you a check?
No. I came up kind of by accident. So I'm still waiting for my check from the Washington Times. Just saying, like. Yeah, I know. I should have got something to writing.
All these podcasts, how many podcasts have you listed now?
I don't know. Like,
I lost count at 15. So
I'm not done. Hold on.
All right, hurry up. We're running out of time.
All right. So last financial podcast is the Peter Schiff show. Not Adam Schiff, Peter Schiff.
Okay.
I've never heard someone so prophetic in understanding economics and what's going on. Absolutely brilliant guy. He predicted the 2008 financial crash, and he's predicting the bubble that's going to burst now. Absolutely stupendous critic of everyone. Totally recommend him.
All right.
I can't read. I don't know what that was.
All right. Why don't we save the rest for another update?
I only have 3. That's it. I promise, just 3. This is my favorite podcast. I listen to it every day. The world and everything in it. It's just the basic news.
Well, why didn't you start with that one? If that's
I'm saving the best for almost last. Basically, it explains what is going on in the world. Very good.
I know what's going on in the world.
But it does it in the most objective way. I've never heard a podcast do it so objectively because they immediately admit we're Christians. We're going to tell you a Christian perspective. Right. Second one, Verdict with Ted Cruz. It's pretty cool listening to a sitting senator tell you exactly what's going on in the Senate chambers. Mm-hmm. Third and last one, The Young Heretics, another thing from the Claremont Institute, from the son of Andrew Klavan, Spencer Klavan, where he just goes through what makes Western culture fantastic.
Right.
And enough said.
Well, that's an exhaustive. I lost track. I stopped counting.
So those are just my favorites. Those are just my favorites.
So I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to have this as a regular feature. Alex is going to be our podcast reviewer and recommender. So we're going to do this again because I'm sure, given your consumption
you weren't
of
expecting
podcasts,
that, were you?
I didn't realize that you had enough time in the day to listen to all these podcasts, but apparently you do. In any case,
well, no, I just do it by walking around. So
maybe if you're at all listening to any of these podcasts that Alex has mentioned, why don't you drop them a line and say, you know what, the Alex and Mark podcast, they recommended you, so why don't you reciprocate? And maybe we'll get to 23,000 by the end of the week. I don't know.
We appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks very much for the roundup. I appreciate it, man.